All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got another episode of the Do Big Things podcast. I've got a great guest here whose story I really want to hear. His name is Terry Miller. Say what's up, Terry.
Hey, thanks for having me, Adam.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah, we were just chatting briefly before this, but congrats on Hardrock, man. It's your very first Hardrock. If I had to guess, you've probably been trying to get into this race for a while.
Yeah, well, I've been trying actively to get in since I think my first 100. I specifically picked a qualifier in 2000. I think it was 13,
Okay.
and in fact, I'm wearing the shirt from it now, Run Rabbit Run, and
Ah, nice.
so I've been trying to get in since then. But even before then, I picked a qualifier for my first 100 because I always knew I wanted to do hard rock.
Really? What was it about Hardrock that called you in before you were even running 100 milers?
Well, there were a few things. The main thing, when I first discovered that trail running was a thing, I had gone for somebody at a running store run club had mentioned trail running was a thing. I'd never heard of it before, and they invited me to a Denver Trail Runners run. Showed up, and there's a few people sitting around, talking about 100 milers and running Leadville and stuff, and I didn't even know that that was humanly possible
Right.
at the time, that that was even a thing. And it just blew my mind. So I went home and I was Googling about it, and just like trail running and trail running races and 100 milers. And I found an article from Outside Online that was from the early 2000s, and it was called "It's Gonna Suck to Be You," and it was all about hard rock, and just some of the people, like profiles of some of the people who did it and what they said about it. And I remember the first thing that the article says, if you can still Google and find the article, and the first thing it says is big bold print. It says there's a reasonable chance somebody might die. And so I was thinking, wow, that sounds, that caught my attention, and then just looking at pictures and everything was so pretty. And even if you look at my ultra sign up, like I don't race a lot. I don't care about racing just for the sake of racing,
Sure.
but things that are really pretty and really hard.
Mm.
So that's the thing that inspires me and makes me want to get out there, is just going and seeing the most beautiful and the hardest places to get to that I
Yeah.
can, and that's hard rock. So
Nice. Yeah, it is. Are you originally from Colorado? Oh, shoot. Did I lose you? Can you hear me?
you kind of locked up there for a second.
Okay. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to switch internets here just in case, but, okay. So, are you originally from Colorado, Terry?
No, I'm originally from the East Coast, Washington, D.C. area. That's where I grew up. And then
Okay.
late teens and early 20s in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Hmm.
And then came here. I've been here a little more than half my life now, so I feel like I'm from Colorado. So
Yeah.
I'm from here as much as anywhere else, I think.
Okay. Nice. What brought you out here to Colorado?
I had family that moved out here, and my mom and stepfather, and my little brothers and sisters moved. I had already left home, but they moved out here, but I knew I was an avid skier, and of course, the skiing in Colorado is great. I figured I'd come stay with them for a few months and see my family and ski some, see what the skiing was like out here, and that was 1994, and I never left.
Haven't looked back. Yeah.
Yeah, similar story. I hear the saying in the mountain towns out here is a lot of people move here for the snow, or move here for the winter and stay for the summers. And that's what happened to me.
That's pretty accurate. Yeah. So when you moved here, you weren't an ultra runner. Were you a runner at all?
Not at all. Running is terrible. I always hated running. I still rarely enjoy the act of running. And yeah, no, I grew up. I played in the woods a lot growing up. I lived kind of some of the places I lived had access to a lot of woods, and I just run around as a kid in the woods all day by myself and be in my own head and imagining, cowboys and Indians or whatever the scenario was. And I just loved running around in the woods. And then as I got older, we moved into more urban places. I played a lot of basketball, not organized, just like playground basketball. So I grew up playing playground basketball, and running. That was about as much running as I did from one end of the court to the other.
Right.
I do that 1,000 times. I was, super fast for 50 feet, but always hated running whatsoever, like as just a thing in and of itself.
Yeah.
And I think I was 37 when I became a runner.
Okay.
And
what happened there?
I had kind of stayed in shape for a long time because I did construction. I was a framer for years and years. But then as I got older, the job got less and less physical and more about telling people what to do. Only my diet didn't keep up with my lifestyle, so I got fatter than I wanted to be, and knew I needed to start, get in shape again. And running was just the most convenient thing. I thought stupidly at the time that, running, all you need is a pair of shoes and go out the door and you can be a runner. And
right.
And I still didn't mean for it to be a lifestyle. I just knew that it was the most convenient thing to do. I figured once I got in shape, that then I could get back into the actual fun stuff,
okay,
the stuff that was actually cool instead of running.
Yeah.
But I knew I had to get something to keep me focused. I had to have a goal to force me to work out even when I didn't want to. So I signed up for a marathon, and I had hurt my knee and stuff, and so like I had run like twice and then hurt my knee, and I wasn't even running at all. But I decided to sign up for a marathon like 4 months away, and about and I think my longest run ever had been 5 or 6 miles at that point. And
perfect.
My sister told me there was no way I could do the marathon in 4 months. I wasn't remotely prepared. And so then I had to do it.
Yep.
And it wasn't until during the marathon, if you'd asked me at the starting line, I would have said there's a pretty good chance this is my last run ever. Like, I didn't care.
Right.
It was just a thing I had set up for myself to force me to run every week. Like if it's a Wednesday and it's raining and I don't feel like running, I know I had to train because it was such a hard thing. It forced me to train. And so, but doing it, I got to, I realized 20 miles in that I was definitely going to finish, and that I had just run 20 miles, which was an insane distance to me.
Right.
But I knew that I could do this insane distance and still know I could go 6 more miles. It was just a paradigm shift of what I was capable of, what humans were capable of. And I knew in that moment that I couldn't just go back to somebody who couldn't do that. It might as well have been a superpower to be able to run 2020 miles, no problem.
Totally.
To me.
Yeah.
And so I literally had the thought, I was like, well, crap, I guess I'm a runner now, because I knew I couldn't go back. So
wow. So you just kind of flipped the script on yourself almost, and found yourself with this new superpower. Once you knew you could run 20 or 26 miles, it was kind of the same thing for me. Same progression too. Eventually did a marathon, and then started looking at these ultra distances. And I just thought, I have this new thing that I found out about myself. I can go run these really long distances, but I also felt like anyone can do this if they want to. I didn't feel like I'm special or I'm gifted. I'm not an athlete. I felt like, man, like we can all do this. It's just that most people don't want to, and they're probably the smart people. But if we put our mind to it and we set this thing up with a training plan, we can go out and do whatever we want. And it just translated to other areas of my life.
That's totally so. And that to me, like, if anything that anybody got, if I could share anything with anybody else, and whether it's about running or any other pursuit, like I am by far not a gifted athlete by nature whatsoever, like, and especially not an endurance athlete. I'm a fast twitch guy, 100%. But the fact that I can do it, anybody should look at me and instead of thinking like, oh my God, that guy's cool or amazing, think geez, if that guy can do it, I can definitely do it.
Yeah,
And
totally.
it was even that got me. And I didn't mention this in the marathon story. I mentioned I'd hurt my knee and so I wasn't even running. So I Googled, I was trying to figure out what was wrong with my knee. So I Googled, running and injuries. And so I was going down a rabbit hole of that. And that was when I found an article that said Oprah Winfrey had run a marathon. And that was kind of the trigger for me. I said, well, if she can do it, if normal, regular people can do it,
Yeah.
I guess that's a thing that's attainable that I can go do, And then I went to that Denver Trail Runners thing and heard people talking about doing 100-mile races. And it was just like, oh, that's a thing people can do. And, once you realize, what's out there, that you can do things it opens up a whole nother world.
Does it? Yeah, literally opens up a whole nother world. And all of a sudden, 5, 10 years later, you have all these new friends, you have just a new support system, new hobbies, maybe other hobbies that sort of revolve around running. Maybe you get into biking or yoga. I mean, it can literally just open up a whole new world. Yeah, same with me. I remember when I was a kid, I heard that Madonna ran a marathon, and I'm like, okay, Madonna, she's a rock star, but she went out and ran a marathon. And I just kind of thought the same thing. Like, I wasn't not comparing myself to Madonna, I guess, but I was just like, if she can do it, I can do it. Like it's a thing that people can do, and I just kind of took note of it as a kid. So when you discovered these guys who were running trails at that running store, was that after your first marathon?
Yeah, I'd never run with anybody else until I'd done that marathon. And it was a couple things. One, that I didn't feel like I was a runner. It was just a thing I was doing that was just kind of this extreme bucket list, and not really bucket list, but more just a one-time, can I achieve this thing?
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, during the run, I was like, well, I guess I'm a runner now.
Yeah.
And then after having run the marathon, I felt like I was a legit enough runner that I could go to like the run club at the local running store and hang out with other runners and see what it was all about.
Yeah.
And then somebody at the running store, that's when they mentioned trail running. And then I found that group and yeah, but I had never, the first race I ever did was that marathon, and I had never hung out with another runner or didn't know anything until after that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I get it. You got to start somewhere. And I remember like reading ultra running blogs and stuff back in the day, because same thing. I didn't have any friends who were running marathons or longer, especially. And, at the time I was living in Wisconsin and sort of exhausting all the resources that I could get my hands on, which at the time was a couple books and a couple blogs online. And that was really about it.
That's a good thing about discovering running, especially trail running in Colorado, is good luck exhausting the resources.
Yeah, right.
Because
it's not going to happen.
No, and I've thought about it. In fact, I just brought it up to the group I was doing trail work with before Hardrock. It occurs to me sometimes just when like, how long would it take you just to run all the trails in the San Juans? It would probably a couple of lifetimes,
right? Just
in that one little corner of the state,
right?
Just to even see what's out here.
Yeah, I mean, you could explore Colorado forever, a lifetime, and barely even touch all of it. I mean, it just goes on forever. So then the distances started getting longer for you, then 50K, 50 mile?
Kind of, but it was pretty quick though. I from the time I discovered that, I mean, because I even, like I said, from the beginning, I knew I wanted to do Hardrock. So I did a 50K in 2012, something like that. And I picked a hard 50K because I knew I had to start doing stuff that was hard.
Mm-hmm.
And the next ultra I ran, I think, was Run Rabbit Run 100-miler. But I had done a couple of distances in between, but not in official races. I paced, I think 30 miles or something. I paced somebody at Hardrock that year. I went and volunteered and paced, and I paced somebody at Leadville, the second half of Leadville. So never done an actual 50 miler, but I paced somebody for 50 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And, but yeah, everything, you know, I knew I wanted to do 100 miles. It was like, it was same with starting with the marathon. It was just the hardest thing I knew of. And so everything in between was just, it was always just training for that.
Mm.
And not, I mean, yeah, Hard Rock was the eventual goal, but I knew that you know, everything was to get to the hard stuff, because that was the thing that really inspired me.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it was the only thing that mattered, because along the way, you know, all those intermediate things, you know, every step along the way, there was so much I learned and so many great experiences, but they were always just experiences I was taking in to be ready for the next thing.
Yeah. That's crazy that you've had your mind set on Hard Rock for so long. I mean, a decade or so, like that's a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess I've kind of had my mind set on Hard Rock for just as long, but it sounds like you were more purposeful with the races you were signing up for, and you were on a little bit more of a mission. So were you looking at Hard Rock kind of the same way you were looking at your first marathon? Like, this is going to be a one and done type thing. I'm going to do this and then it's off the bucket list. But then, you know, obviously that didn't happen with the marathon, and maybe that won't happen with Hard Rock either. But were you kind of looking at it as the same way? Like, I just want to check this thing off.
I think at first, maybe it was like that. When I first read that article, like, this is just a thing I want to do. And with the marathon, like, I only ran one other road marathon ever, and I'm on my, you know, 7th or 800 or something like that. Because the marathon didn't interest me, but, you know, didn't inspire me. But with along the way, learning, you know, there were so many other experiences that I got along the way, and realized, you know, how much deeper it is than just like a race to check off. And especially, I think it was 2013 and 14 when I first went down there and volunteered at the race and found somebody to pace at the race, and started experiencing the area and the people that are around that race. And I don't know if you've had the chance to go to Silverton for Hard Rock.
I have.
But it's just so cool. You walk around this little town, and I mean, I must know, you know, hundreds of runners here in Denver, and I'll occasionally run into one on the trails. But you go to Silverton around Hard Rock, and you're just walking down the street, bumping elbows with, you know, you'll see 20, 30 people, you know, if you walk a few blocks.
Right.
It's just such a cool gathering, you know, like a family reunion, or, you know, just a get together. So it became, you know, after even a year or two of going down there and volunteering and doing trail work and everything, not getting in, it's still, even without getting in, it was always the most fun weekend of the year, just to go down there. So I intend to go back as many times as possible, whether it's racing or volunteering or just, you know, whatever. I just like going down there. I think I've volunteered 6 years there now and paced people 6 times now.
Wow.
And yeah, I just like being around it.
Yeah.
And it's just such a good time, you know, whether I'm running or not.
Yeah. It is a really special race. There's just something about it. Like you said, it feels like a family reunion. And yeah, you see all these runners hugging, and they haven't seen each other for a year, and it just feels really special. You go to Leadville or something like that, and, you know, the race is 4 times, 5 times bigger, and it's not as intimate. There's just masses of people everywhere, and sure, everyone has the same goal, but it's just a completely different feel. Hard Rock is just really special.
And I love Leadville too. I go to Leadville. I volunteer at Leadville. I think same thing. I volunteered there 6 years, and I paced there 6 years. It's not the same. Leadville's more a party than a family reunion, I think. And so it's cool too. Like, I'm not going to put down any other races. And that's another thing I was going to say too, is on the way to getting, you know, in my mind at first, everything was, I want to go to Hard Rock, so I'm going to do all this other stuff to be ready for Hard Rock, and I'm going to do these qualifiers to be ready for Hard Rock. But they're all so amazing in and of themselves, and you know, the people I met along the way, and the places I get to go, and I tell, when people ask, why do you run? My answer is always because of the places it takes me.
Mm.
And and I mean that literally and emotionally and spiritually and in every way, because, even doing these things, it may have started out as just a way to get to the eventual destination. But then everything that I encountered along the way, mountains I climbed and places I went and other races I did, like everything along the way was just so special in and of itself that, that the goal itself, the race itself, and that was 48 hours, and it was cool to get, to the end. Obviously, it was amazing, having so emotional to get there. But, everything along the way I grew and learned so much from all of that, from everything that I did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, really, yeah, it was like a decade-long journey to get to Hardrock. And I mean, if someone is listening to this and says, maybe they're dabbling in ultras and they say, I'd like to do Hardrock sometime, it is, and your journey for that person, it takes a long time of applying year after year and doing all those qualifiers. It could be a decade-long journey to get into Hardrock. And in that decade, you're going to be running a 50 miler to get in shape for your 100 miler. That's the qualifier for Hardrock, and then you don't get into Hardrock. So, okay, you got those 2 races under your belt and you've met a lot of friends along the way, and it's just a big journey that just keeps on. It's like a snowball that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
100%.
So walk me through Hardrock this year. I don't think it's any secret that you were the last person across the finish line, and I say that with nothing but, honor and respect, because you were out there longer than anyone else, man. Like, you were literally on your feet longer than anyone else, almost 50 hours. And, that's a long time. Like, I've run a bunch of hundreds. You've run a bunch of hundreds. I'm going to have to guess this one took longer than any other one for you. But just walk me through a few hours. Yeah. But just walk me through it. I'm curious, like what your head was like going into this thing, what your goals were, and just how the couple days went for you.
Well, I knew that my training hadn't quite been as good as I wanted. I hit all the training runs I needed to, the important ones. I got super busy with work, so I didn't get as much of the, I'd plan on, okay, I got these big training runs, but then I'm going to do an hour on the rowing machine in between, and I'd miss a lot of that kind of stuff because I got so busy with work. So I went in 7 or 8 pounds heavier than I wanted to be, which is still 20 pounds heavier than the rest of the field. And so I think between work and stress and things, I wasn't getting faster like I'd hoped. So I knew I wasn't 100%, but I knew I could still finish. I just knew I didn't have much margin for error. I'd hoped that after tapering that I would, have a burst of energy and I would feel amazing after tapering. But I knew I wasn't going to know that until the first climb.
Yeah.
So took off, and the first few miles were pretty flat, and I was in, mid pack as I usually am when it's pretty flat. And then, 3 miles in or something like that, it turns straight uphill, and it was just a parade of people passing me, which is also not terribly uncommon. I'm pretty used to that, even in my training runs and things like that. And I don't know if I know Julian Smith. Don't know if you've been out with him, but like some of those groups on the US course, go out with him with 7 or 8 people. And the same thing, I immediately watch everybody go away from me up the hill and wait for me at the tops. And yeah, so by the first, it was like that, just a parade of people passing me. And I was basically in last place at the top of the first climb. And I knew then that it was going to be, if I'd been at least hanging on to the pack at that point, I would have felt a little better.
Yeah.
But I knew it was going to be a long, long 2 days.
Right from the beginning, the very first climb, you knew it.
Oh, dude. I even made it to the first aid station in Cunningham, and already people were like, "Oh, okay, like you're, you need to get out of here."
Okay.
And when you're hearing that at the first aid station, that's less than ideal.
It's not a good sign.
So, and I just knew, and again, I think it's in some ways, good that I had to do so many other races to get here and other things, because I just knew I just can't afford any bad points. Like I knew I still could finish, but I didn't have any room for error. I couldn't have any low spots, bad. So it was just okay, let's go, and I'm gonna go and give it all I've got, and just try to do everything I could right, and make sure I ate right, and just not have any low points.
Mm-hmm.
And it still didn't go. There were things that could have gone better. I got pretty bad blisters right away.
Mm-hmm.
So at Sherman at mile 28, I had to stop and get some blisters fixed and tape up my feet a little bit. Had to deal with that a little more at Uray. And so I had blisters, probably slowed me down quite a bit, but physically, everywhere, every aid station, every person who saw me said, you look great, like they were always, there was always but you're in you need to hurry. You don't have much time to waste here. But they would say, oh, we haven't seen anybody look as good as you in hours. Because, so I knew I had to keep it together. And I knew that, having a bad attitude or feeling like, oh my God, this is like, it wasn't going to help anything.
Yeah.
That keeping a good attitude was just going to make my body feel better. And I also knew the whole time, it wasn't just that I'd wanted to get there for 10 years and it was that special to me, but that there were thousands of people who would have loved to be in my place.
Mm-hmm.
So many people would have just given anything to be running Hardrock right now.
Yeah.
And that I might have been struggling and suffering, but I'm literally one of the luckiest people in the world to be here, to even have a shot at doing this, to be able to be out here. So I was happy the whole time.
Nice.
And I was very conscious of not wanting to waste, it was a privilege that so many, like I said, thousands of other people would have loved to have. And I felt been disrespectful to them to not, give it everything that it deserved. So
yeah,
I was just like, okay, let's see what we can do with this.
Yeah.
Stay after it.
Yeah. That's so important is keeping your mind frame in a positive direction. I mean, once things go south mentally, that's when everything else starts going south. Is that just something that you've learned throughout the years and other 100 milers, or where did that come from with you?
I think I don't know where I initially learned it. I don't know if it's something I read, but people commented in my very first marathon about me smiling a lot. And I don't smile a lot. Like people who know me know that, like pictures of me and like, if you catch me smiling in a picture, I probably forced myself to do it and it probably looks pretty awkward. Like I'm not a smiley person.
Yeah.
But I know that the act of doing it, of being cheerful, of smiling, say that it physically makes you feel better.
Yeah.
And so, and conversely, acting miserable, like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I feel terrible. My feet are killing me right now. Even what true or not, like whining about it makes you feel worse.
Mm-hmm.
So there was just no reason to do anything else. And I did learn, and decide, I think my second or third 100, that every time anybody asks how I'm doing, the answer is amazing, wonderful. Like, I'm doing wonderful. They have, my feet are about to fall off, but other than that, I'm great.
Right.
Whatever. They'll have time to heal afterward. So I knew that I had to just stay in that space. Like you said, once if your mind goes, it's just so hard to, you start just death marching and and I didn't have time for that.
Yeah. No, I think that's cool, man. And that's something I try and implement too. You're right. Just like forcing yourself to smile at people, or whenever I see another runner, I always cheer them on and I'm always like, yeah, good job, man. You're doing great, because sure, it might be hyping them up a little bit, but it's on some level hyping myself up. You know,
Sure.
like me cheering them on somehow keeps my spirits up. And then I cheer for the next person and the next person. Somehow my spirits stay up. I don't know exactly how that works, but it's important, especially such a brutal race. So when you found yourself in last place towards the beginning of this race, were there ever any doubts in your mind? Were there ever any moments where you thought, man, this is just, I don't know if I can keep up with this. I'm chasing cutoffs. Like maybe this isn't my year.
I know that there were definitely, I probably spent more time feeling like I wasn't likely to finish than that I was.
Okay.
Um, I, because I knew I had read beforehand the splits from other previous years, and I knew what the average 48-hour finish time was.
Yep.
And I thought before the race, if I had a good race, I thought, I thought I could do 46. So I knew I wasn't going to be in the front of the pack or anything. 46 would have been solid for me.
Yep.
So, I knew the splits for that time, and for, 48 hours, I knew the splits, and I knew I was way behind them. So, and that race, there could be like some nasty weather, or, anything could go wrong. And I knew that it didn't, that the odds were probably better for me not to finish than finish. But I also knew that I was capable of finishing, and I had to just keep myself in as good a position as possible to give myself a chance in the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just keep myself within striking distance. So,
so as you're coming into the aid stations, are they telling you, and you're up against the cutoffs, you got to keep moving? We're going to give you 1-2 minutes of aid, and then we're kicking you out of here.
The cutoffs are pretty generous. So I wasn't near the cutoffs at the aid station. Like if you ever miss a cutoff at an aid station, you were already not going to finish that race.
Okay.
For sure. So it wasn't like that, but they were definitely telling me, and I was close to some other runners at times, but those runners would kind of have had a bad spot and fall back, but then they'd make, then they were much faster once they get going and pull away. So it was never like, or not until the very end, was it like, you got to get out of here right now. It was just more like, okay, let's get some food in you, but you can't stick around too long. It's just more like, just be, don't get too comfortable.
Yeah.
And that was, and something, and I've done all the races I've done have been mountainous races, but this one, between the mountains and the altitude, excuse me, I had to adjust a little bit, spend a little more time in the aid stations than I wanted, because it's hard to eat and climb. Especially, I don't know, other people, but for me, so my normal routine is I'll just grab a handful of food, and I always have a quart Ziploc baggie in my pockets at all times, running 100, so I can grab food, so I can always have a to-go bag. I just throw fruit, throw stuff in it. But I had to sit and, probably an extra 5 minutes at each aid station and get more food down.
Okay.
It was hard to eat
while
I was going, but it was, they, like I said, they were telling me, you can't get too comfortable, but I knew what I had to do. So, I wasn't wasting any time to begin with in the aid stations. And then at the end, it was kind of funny, the very last aid station at like mile 95 or whatever, they actually asked me if I wanted to sit down, and I was like, "Are you crazy? Do you know what time it is? I can't sit down." But no, they were always. I think everybody was just perfect. They were. You got this. You're doing great. You're doing wonderful. But let's keep an eye on the clock. Let's get you out of here as quick as we can. But you're looking good, man. Just have some food real quick and keep moving. And that was what I had to do.
You said you had to tape up your feet at Sherman. Do you know by chance who taped your feet up by any strange chance? I have a bunch of friends that were working out at Sherman this year.
A little bit, a couple people kind of tag teamed doing stuff on that, but one of the guys working on my feet, I think, was I don't remember his name because my brain was preoccupied, but the RD for the high five was there.
Oh, okay.
And he was helping out. That's the think that's the only specific person I remember, but I don't remember his name.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. How was the weather? Weather was pretty decent this year, wasn't it?
Weather was pretty great the whole time. There was actually, and it was actually couldn't have been more perfect in an imperfect way. There was hail and thunder and lightning as my pacer and I were going up to Kroger's. And it was just, that's such an iconic aid station. Like it's kind of defines the wild and tough of the race.
Right.
And that the weather was doing that as we were going up to Kroger's. I'm like, oh, there's lightning. But you're already up so high. I was just like, well, whatever at this point,
Just
like,
kill me now. I don't
exactly,
care.
But to get up there and like, it's extreme and just the thunder, it just kind of was like, well, this is wild and tough. This is what I signed up for,
Exactly.
with the race. So,
Yeah.
And it didn't rain enough to be, I mean, I was soaked, but it wasn't like rivers of rain or anything like that. And in some ways it it was a little slippery leaving the aid station and getting to it, but some of the ground is so the ground is so loose there, it might have actually helped it be a little stickier.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I had to stop and put layers on, take them off, which was annoying, but
Yeah.
honestly, it probably cooled things down, and it probably didn't end up slowing me down at all,
Nice.
which was good, because that was a worry of mine, that there'd be a big lightning storm and I'd get pinned down and have to lose time.
Yep.
To that.
Yeah, that could have wrecked everything. That could have been 10 minutes that you needed,
Right.
And how many pacers did you have?
I had 3 pacers.
Okay.
Super awesome.
How many people on crew total?
Those 3 were
just those 3. Okay.
helping out on crew.
Cool.
They would crew when they weren't pacing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they all took wonderful care of me. And most of my other hundreds I've done with no crew, no pacers.
Really?
That's typically the way I go. And partly, I don't like asking for help. I'm not good at asking for help.
Yeah.
And also because I wanted those other things to be as hard and as brutal as possible to toughen me up for Hardrock.
Yeah.
And Hardrock, I've paced with a bunch of people and been there. I wanted to share it with people. It wasn't so much I wanted the help. I just wanted to share it with people because it's just such a cool thing.
Sure.
And so, I asked these 3 people, good friends of mine, Sean and Andrea and Dave, to come see if they wanted to pace me. And they all said yes right away, and gave up lots of their time and put up with lots of my misery and awfulness. And they were all amazing. And as it turns out, I'm pretty good at being self-sufficient, but even just, they would bring me things in aid stations and little stuff like that. And, even though like I always pride myself on being independent, that probably actually did make the difference for me in this race. Cause I had 12 minutes to spare in the end.
Yeah.
And so it's entirely likely that had I not, had crew pacers this time, that I might not have been able to do it.
Yeah. Were they pushing you as well? Did they know how close you were to a deadline, that you've got to keep moving? Like, we need to at least maintain such and such a pace to get you in on time?
They were, to the extent that they could. I think I was pretty much giving it what I had.
Yeah.
There wasn't much that could have been forced out of me. We were joking about they were going to sharpen the tips of their poles to prod me along a little better, but I don't know that. I don't know that there was much more to be dug deep for earlier in the race. I was a little bit slow going up Engineer. My stomach was a little wonky, but I was still moving well, just, probably not quite as fast as I would have liked to. And I was like, should I just puke and feel better? But then I'll have no calories, and I know I need the calories. So I'll just slow it down a little bit. And I feel like I couldn't at most places have done much more than I did, given how I felt in the race at the time.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. It's incredible, man. And how did that finish line feel? I mean, I feel like you earned it more than anyone else. And that particular day, just like, how did it feel to kiss the rock at the end of that thing? Was it just complete exhaustion? Or were you thinking back like 10 years ago when I signed up for this race, when I first heard of this race, or what was it like?
It was a surreal experience. And I, obviously I'd been awake for 2 days, so my brain, and I was so like tapped out of emotion. I was starting to cry a couple of blocks before the finish, and I was like, man, I'm going to be a mess at the finish. And when I got to the finish, I wasn't like, I was just like, I was kind of in the moment, like, oh, this is happening now. Like, and people were coming up and stuff like that. The real emotion hit me. I knew that there's a river 2.5 miles from the finish, at 2 miles and change, and I knew I had to hit the river by 5:15. And if I hit the river by 5:15, I was going to be okay. And so that whole last section, I was just pushing myself. The last couple of climbs, I decided my pacer actually suggested maybe backing off a little bit, because I had told myself that, okay, this is it. Like it's, this is the last section. I don't need to leave anything in the tank anymore. And if I have a heart attack here and this is where I go out, well, it is what it is. And so I pushed that line on those climbs and just running those downhills, but trying to get to that river by 5:15. And like, I wasn't even looking at my watch, because it didn't matter. I just knew I had to go as hard as I could. And my pacer ran ahead a little bit when we started getting close, to make sure I didn't miss a turn to the river, whatever, or to see where it was. And I just ran hard to that river and pulled myself across the river with the rope and came out the other side. And I looked at my watch and it was 5:05. And that's the spot when I kind of, I knew I was going to make it at that point. And that's like, everything kind of just released then. And then it was just a jumble the last couple of miles to the finish. And I got to the finish. My buddy Howie Stern, he was right there taking pictures. And so, I'd imagined kissing the rock for so long, and then, and I did it. And it was just like everything just, it was almost like numb, or, just too many things at once to feel. And just like, oh, now what do I do? Like, I hadn't thought beyond that point. Like, like I didn't even realize, Dale came out and gave me a medal, and I had like forgotten about that. I was like starting to walk away, because it's just like, no, I had never thought beyond getting there. And and it was, I had never thought about being last either. That was never part of the dream.
Sure.
And so coming in, there was the cheers. I mean, just, whatever, a couple hundred people out there cheering. It was loud, and it was such a weird thing to experience. I mean, great. And but my mental state, like, I didn't even know how to take it all in or process.
I was just so tired. Just so exhausted, so depleted. And you knew for a fact there was no one behind you, right? You knew that you were like, this is it, last place coming in.
I was actually kind of sad, and I told my pacer along the way, because I had seen back in the distance, I knew there were 2 more people back there. But I also knew they were too far back there.
Okay.
So I knew for a long time that for at least half an hour or an hour, I knew I was going to be last.
Okay.
Because after those last couple of climbs, I could see where the other people were. And and I told I was like, I hope I'm not DFL, in part because hopefully they get, they start feeling it, and they catch up too, and that they finish too. But for a while, I did know that it was going to, but I hadn't run through in my head all the noise
Right.
and the
Well,
screaming and ever cheering at the end.
yeah, I mean, there's so many people there to see the winners come through, and then people kind of dissipate, and there's always still some people there cheering runners on, et cetera. But then for the last place, right before the clock rolls over to 50 hours, everybody comes out again because it gets exciting again.
Right.
And yeah, man. So there was a couple people that did the full 100-mile course, and it was over the 50 hours. Is that right?
48, over 48. Yeah.
Or over 48. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. They got recognized at the awards ceremony and stuff too.
Okay.
And I had, that had crossed my mind a number of times too, that even if I didn't make it, that I hoped I at least made the last aid station under the cutoff so I could at least do the whole course. So I give those people tons of respect for
Totally. Wow. Unreal, man. And your legs are feeling pretty good now. You're what? Only a week out, right?
Yeah. They feel pretty good.
Nice.
They feel funny to walk on because the blisters are just like chunks of skin now, but no, the legs are good. And in fact, somebody, my friend Kristen was teasing me on Facebook a little bit a couple of days after, because I lift weights also, and so she teased me about something, and so I had to go. I went and lifted some weights on Tuesday, and yeah, the legs were pretty good.
You weren't doing any squats or any leg presses on that day, were you?
On Tuesday?
Yeah.
I did deadlifts.
Okay.
I did deadlift. I deadlifted 350 pounds. Just
nice. Okay. Nice. Dang. Wow, man. What'd you do to celebrate after you finished?
I had a really long hot shower.
Oh, doesn't that feel so good?
That was
like it feels good, and it also hurts on everything that's been chafing and all the blisters. Yeah. And like it feels so good to take a shower, but it also hurts so much.
It was, yeah. I had to, we had the award ceremony a couple hours later, and if I'd finished earlier, I could have gone to sleep, but I couldn't even go to sleep before the award ceremony. So and then I had to go home. My pacer drove most of the way. I drove a little bit of the way home. So it was, 8 or 9 o'clock by the time there was really nothing to celebrate. So my celebration is I'm eating whatever I want this week.
Nice. That works.
That's the celebration.
That works. That's good. Well, I hope you're eating some good food and putting the feet up, eating some ice cream and indulging a little, because
I bought a couple things of Ben and Jerry's that won't last the week.
Nice. Nice. Oh man, if I did that, they'd be gone already.
The cool thing, as far as not a specific celebration, but from getting just noticed from finishing last, is the people reaching out on social media and stuff and commenting and the congratulations and things from literally hundreds of people on Twitter and Facebook and everything, and even like some of my hero, if you ask me, like ultra running hero all time is Blake Wood. Mm-hmm. And he had a hard time and he didn't finish. Mm-hmm. And he posted on my Facebook, he's like, yeah, I would have taken that.
Yeah. And,
yeah. And Carl Meltzer said nice job on my Facebook. So yeah, just tons of my heroes and hundreds of people, just giving me lots of props. And it's pretty cool because I'm a, pretty independent person, kind of a hard ass and that sort of thing. So, but it's still, it means a lot to, for everybody to be, so supportive and cool to me.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I mean, Hardrock is just such a hard race. To finish last place, first place, like in that family, it doesn't matter. You finished. You're in the family. You're a part of the family now. People are going to remember you. You go back next year, there's going to be a lot of hugs and slaps on the back, and everyone's going to remember who you are. And it's just, yeah, like we said earlier, Hardrock is just such a cool family. And as you're sitting here telling me the story, like I get goosebumps hearing you telling your story about coming into the finish line, just the same way I get goosebumps when I hear about first place coming into the finish line. And, you know, it's like you're still fighting for whatever it is you're fighting for. And dude, I love it. And like I said, you deserve like an extra award because you were out there longer than anybody else, man. I mean,
I already got an extra award. I got more for my money. So
that's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
I got to eat more aid station food. And
yeah. Yeah. If you could go back and change anything, is there anything you would change that day to make yourself faster or
so a couple little logistical things probably. I started with a pair of socks and that were low cut socks, and they pretty early on started drifting down below the tops of my shoes and chafing. So the tops of my shoes were chafing my feet a little bit, and they were letting a lot of stuff in. And so I would have started in different socks. Fortunately, I had different socks to change into at Sherman, but I think that kind of set the stage for my messed up feet. And I've never worn gaiters on a run before. I think I tried them once or twice, but I had bought a pair at the demo before the run and had them in my pack, and I put them on at Sherman, and then they helped a lot for the rest of the race. So I probably would have started with different socks and gaiters, and that might have helped my feet a little bit. My feet, they're always my weak link, and this was no exceptions. I might have pre-taped my feet, which I've done before and helped, but in this case, I thought I had it figured out, and I didn't think I was going to need to. So, so I probably would have done that, and that likely would have saved me some heartache.
Yeah. If you could change anything about your training, is there anything you would have changed?
I would have forced myself to sleep more. I think that was
really
the big thing, is that because like I said, I did all the important training that I need, but I was just busy doing stuff with work and you know, I do real estate. So, you know, I got it even 4 days before the race. I got a place under contract. So I'm up till, you know, 11:30 at night doing paperwork on the computer and trying to get things signed before the race. And I feel like that's probably why my training didn't take, you know, like I did it, but it didn't have as big of an effect as I wanted because I wasn't recovering as well as I should have during my training. So
sure.
But I mean, I know the runs I need to make myself work, and I was doing those, but I felt like I didn't do the recovery part as well as I should have.
Was that for months before the race, or like did you catch up on sleep like the week before the race and try and sleep as much as you can before Hardrock?
I did more, and that was the plan, to definitely like sleep as much as I could during my taper. But yeah, the whole time work got busy early, you know, in like March, and just stayed at a pretty high level for a few months, which has been great. You know, like money is awesome. But yeah, it was, I was commenting on my friends and everything, how it was annoyingly interfering with my Hardrock training and with the rest and recovery. So
yeah,
and that's partly, I blame it on the work, but partly it's my discipline of not managing it all right and trying to fit too much stuff into a day, which has always been a weakness of mine, of overreaching in every respect, which including doing races like this. But yeah, I probably ought to have dialed it back so I got more sleep.
Yeah.
Training.
Yeah. I can relate. I mean, it's tough when you've got a full-time job, you're kind of burning the candle at both ends, and you're training for one of the hardest 100-milers in the world while you have a full-time job, you know.
And I'm a single dad too half the time. So I have my daughter half the time. So there's that. And when I'm with her, it's, you know, it's just 100% focus on her. And
totally.
So trying to manage it all, that I didn't do as well as I should have or could have, probably,
for sure,
with that part. Yeah.
Did you get some big mileage training weeks in before that, or was it more just like, okay, here's a day or two I have to play with, I'm going to go bang out some big miles and we'll call it good?
I often mess with people. I troll people a little bit on like the trail and ultra running groups on Facebook because they always talk about training for how many miles do you need to get, or training for 100. Should I be doing 60 miles a week, 80 miles a week? And I'm like, well, my last couple hundreds, I averaged 22 miles a week. And Hardrock, I took a little more seriously, and I bumped it up to about 25 miles a week. I figured the averages, but that's mostly trolling people. That's not the whole story, because a lot of those miles, I'll go up to Boulder, and I don't know how I'm sure you're familiar with Bear Peak and,
Yep.
and that. So it's just straight up and down. I would joke around too, like, well, I mean, Hardrock should be easy because the trails I do are steeper and more technical. Because I would just go up and do Fern Canyon, Shadow Canyon, Green Mountain. Yeah, I may have gone out there and done, it may only be an 18 or 20 mile day, but it was 10 hours,
Right.
that sort of thing. And then in between, I've got an incline trainer and a rowing machine in my living room, and I lift weights to do kettlebell stuff. So it's not just, I say it was 25 miles a week, but that's not telling the whole story of really what I did. I mean, I was training, 14, 15 hours a week.
Yeah.
So, but no, I never did high miles. And even, I've done all the 14ers, so I'll go do those a lot. And, and it may be a 15, 18 hour day, but I only got 16 miles in, 18 miles in.
Right.
But there's a lot more work in it than
Yeah, no kidding.
miles.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you meet Julian Smith? Was it through Hardrock?
That's a good question.
No, you knew him before Hardrock.
It might have been Project Treadstone.
Okay.
I may have met him before that, but that's probably where I first hung out with him.
Okay.
Was out there.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. That's how I met him too.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're hanging with the same circle of people, and
Right.
and he's a great guy, and
I think he's helped a lot of people.
oh dude, so much. Yeah, he's helped me just a ton with getting that Nolan's route dialed, and not to mention just hanging with a really fast, efficient guy in the mountains. I mean, he's like a daddy long legs. The guy just moves so well in the mountains, and just trying to keep up with him is a full-time job. But yeah, no, I just noticed that we had a lot of the same friends, and it's kind of surprising we've never crossed paths, or if we have, it's like two ships in the night. Yeah, no kidding. Well, what's coming up next for you? You just did like the gnarliest, hardest 100-miler in the world, arguably. Like, do you have anything else on the calendar?
I always have other stuff on the calendar, but it's not always about, like I said, I don't race a ton. Like, racing in and of itself is not a thing for me. I'm going to put myself in the lottery for Hurt in Hawaii in January. I have unfinished business there, and I love, things have to be really pretty and hard for me to be inspired by them. I'm going to go do the Barkley Fall Classic in Tennessee, because the only other race, and I discovered it about the same time as Hardrock years ago, the only other race I ever cared about is Barkley. So doing Barkley Fall Classic just to spend time in Frozen Head, because in the anticipation that maybe someday, one of these years, I might get into Barkley and
Nice.
do that. But there's not, as far as races go, there's not a ton else nothing else is really calling my name right now. But I finished the 14ers last year, and so now I'm working on Centennials.
Oh, wow.
And I also have kind of a goal for myself also, where I realized a couple of years ago that Hardrock, as hard and as cool as it is, it only actually goes over one mountain. It goes up a ton of passes, but you only actually summit one mountain.
Handies.
I like climbing mountains.
Yeah, me too.
So I decided I want to climb all the mountains on the Hardrock course. So that's like 110 mountains I want to climb.
Really? Wow.
So that'll take 10 years or something like that.
You're gonna have to move down there, man.
Something, yeah.
Wow.
So it's that kind of. I have a lot of peaks and mountains, and eventually I'll do Nolan's. I won't do it in 60 hours, but I'll do it eventually. So I, like to get out there and still explore and learn my way. I'm learning my way around pretty well there. So just that kind of stuff is more.
Have you spent a bunch of time out there on? Have you spent a bunch of time out there on the Nolan's course?
I mean, not a bunch compared to some people. I've done all of the sections at least once, and some of them 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
So, that's still, and so most of the sections I wouldn't say that I have dialed in at all, because it's not something I'm going to try for another year or 2 to put it all together. But it's just like a weekend or 2 here or there, in there figuring out what works for me there.
Yeah.
And and I'll be able to. I was so focused on 14ers for the last couple of years as I got close to finishing that I wasn't spending much time on the Nolan's course, because I was trying to do all the new ones I hadn't done. So
okay.
And now that I've done Hardrock, I've done the 14ers. Now, I have all these other things I want to do, but I can just kind of do whatever I feel like this weekend. I'll go do it.
That's a good feeling once you've been tied down to a race for a while and the pressure's on, and finally you're just like, I can just go do a couple peaks this weekend, totally casual.
Right. And even like with race, there's a few like 100K races out there that I've never done, because I've always had my A race of the year has always been a Hardrock qualifier.
Okay.
And now I'm qualified for 3 years, so now I can go do
some other stuff.
I can still get into. I know I can get into Hardrock, or I'm at least qualified for Hardrock.
For sure. So, wow.
Always more mountains to climb.
There always is, man. It's insane. And you're no spring chicken either. How old are you?
49.
49. Okay, I'm 46, so you got a few years on me. But yeah, man. I mean, well done. You're, like I said, you're no spring chicken.
I'm way. I got a few years younger than Julian, so there's
I know.
I can keep doing it for a long time, because I am still that guy. Gets after it so well. So I have so many role models like him, and people I see, Blake Wood, all these people out there that are, when I was a kid, I looked at people my age and was like, those people are old.
Yeah.
And now when I'm here, I'm looking at the other people, 5, 10, 15 years older than me, just crushing it. It's like, I feel no need to slow down.
Yeah, totally. I know. Yeah, Julian and Blake and all those guys, they're just such an inspiration, they might not be running as fast as they were 10, 15 years ago, but they're probably, they're still out there doing it,
They're still running a lot faster than I am.
Yeah, right. And there's just always room to grow. So like we mentioned before, you can kind of take ultra running and learn a lot of life lessons there, like how to overcome adversity, how to persevere, or whatever it looks like for you. It's probably different for everybody. What has ultra running ultimately like taught you that you've been able to bring to the rest of your life that's been helpful?
That's a good question. I think part of it is it helps deal with stress and things like that, in that when you've run 100 miles, whether it's Hardrock, any 100-mile race, once you've done some of this stuff, it's hard to feel like there's other stuff that's just too hard in your life.
Right.
It's other things come up and they suck, but okay, well, this is just another mountain. Like, I've done harder stuff. Like, okay, this is another hard thing. I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like when I want people to, it drives me crazy when I meet people who are not runners or ultra runners, and they hear about the stuff I do, and they say, "Oh my God, I could never do that."
Mm-hmm.
I hate that, because of what they're giving up about themselves,
Right.
and not feeling that they could. Because once you know that you can, like, it's just the whole world is open to you. You're not gonna be like, oh, I can't handle this or that. So it's just so empowering.
Yeah.
That's why I like sharing it. And even what, it's not everybody's thing to run 100 miles,
Right.
but there are things that people can do that they don't think they can do. That, like I said in the beginning, like this is like a superpower, but everybody can get it. Like there are things, whether it's, somebody wants to run 5Ks or lift weights or, whatever it is that they want to tackle, that their capacity is so much more than they think it is. And once you recognize it, that every other aspect of your life is easier to deal with, and you can approach it in a different way, more confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I remember one night I had to paint a whole bunch of the inside of the house because we were moving like the next day. And it's like, okay, well, that means I don't get to sleep tonight. I got to stay up all night and I got to do this paint job and it's going to suck. And then I have to work tomorrow and I'm going to be tired and grouchy. And then that thought just came to my head. It's like, I've been in way lower places than this. Like, this is nothing. I'm just going to crank some music on and just laugh at how stupid my situation is because, yeah, I've been way, way deeper, darker places than this. So it's just like, that's just one small example, of course. You got to paint the house. But there's so many parallels there. Last question, Terry, where do you see yourself in like 10 years down the road? Do you see yourself still doing this stuff?
Definitely.
Cool.
I have a daughter who's 3.5. And so if I can still be doing it in 15, 20 years, and so I can do it with her, that would be cool. I brought her home. She saw we were watching videos before the race, so she would know what I was doing while I was gone. So we were geeking out on YouTube, and she's like, "Can I go do the race? Can I go do the race with you?" And I brought her back a shirt from the race. They had shirts, kid sizes, and she got the shirt, and she's like, "Oh, does this mean I can do the race now?"
Yeah. You're planting seeds, man.
Yeah. So I got to be able to keep moving, doing it for that at least that long.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, man, plant those seeds and water them because you never know what's going to come up years down the road. I always tell this story about one of my biggest influences when I was a kid was this guy we'd see out running all the time. And I'd be driving with my family and we'd see him in town. And there was this guy running with his shirt off. And then we'd drive outside of town and he'd be way out on these county roads out there running with his shirt off. I never met the guy. But when I started running in my adult life, my mind went back to him and I'm like, oh, there was that crazy guy that was always out running. I wonder who that guy was, So you never really know who's watching, I mean, you could be inspiring just all kinds of people without even knowing about it. So
I hope so. And that's my daughter, if it's not like she's 3. So if she grows up and she wants to do something other than running or whatever, she climbs too. But if it's something other than that she wants to do, then great. Or anybody who sees me and what I do, and I would hope that the main thing that they would take away is that that I'm back of the pack barely. Like if you look at me, I tell people I'm a runner sometimes, and they look at me and they kind of look at me like you can tell they're like, really, you don't look like a runner. But just like for my daughter or whatever, like I just want her to know that she can do anything. Like it's there. Like dad runs 100 miles. So that's just a normal thing. People can just do this stuff. And so that, I think if people just recognized you can just do this stuff if you want to, that's world would be a better place. Anybody
can do this stuff or whatever it is they want to. If your daughter grows up and wants to be the world's best ballerina, you have the skills to help her get there, because you know how to grind it out and get that 100-mile hard rock done. So, I mean, that's translatable in one way, shape or form, but, well, cool, man. Good luck this summer. It sounds like you're going to be just climbing more mountains and doing personal projects and still getting after it. So good luck, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. How often you make it up to Boulder?
depends on the season. In the winter, a lot more. When I can get to the real mountains, then I do.
Yeah.
So, but if weather or time or whatever is not as is not as good, then more. So, but at least once a week, I'm probably up there. And most of the year,
Cool.
I'm probably going up there after we get off the film.
Nice.
So get off of
Nice.
this call. I'm probably going to go. I'm not going to do a lot of miles, but I'll probably go do the freeway.
Good. Oh, sweet. Nice.
Stretch my legs out. And
that's some good recovery right there. Little cross training, little scrambling.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites. I love it. Well, hit me up sometime when you're coming out, man. We'll have to scramble the second or go run up and down green or bear or something out here, man. So
that sounds good. Yeah, we ought to rectify the fact we haven't met. So.
I know. I think we've got like 50 of the same friends, so we might as well just get together and run.
For sure.
Well, thanks for doing this, man, and congrats on Hardrock. Like I said, wear this as a badge of honor, man. Like you did it. You know, this is just one of those races where people are just as excited for first place as they are for last place. And there's nothing to take away there, man. You did it. You grinded it out, and hats off to you, man. So like I said, put your feet up, eat some ice cream, enjoy yourself.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for doing this. Take care, Terry. We'll see you. All right.